Hi, my name is Len Perna. I'm the chairman and CEO of Turnkey ZRG, which is the sports, entertainment, and media practice of ZRG. And we're really happy to announce that we've expanded internationally. We're now a global practice. George Williams joined us in Europe and is the lead and the head of our practice for sports, entertainment, and media in Europe. And we're announcing today Troy Haas is joining us and is going to be the head of our practice in Australia and the Asia Pacific region for sports, entertainment, and media. So guys, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
And I guess I would just start out by asking, you've had a long and great career in sports talent recruiting.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Why Turnkey ZRG? Why now?
Well, I've been now with Turnkey for coming on about 8 or 9 months in total. It's been fantastic to be part of the business, to work with some amazing colleagues and some brilliant clients. And I'm pleased to say the reason I joined has played out in terms of the colleagues that I've been able to work with have been incredibly collaborative, best in class in what they do, very knowledgeable, and great at working with clients to really understand what their needs are. And that's something that's fundamental in this market. As search becomes more and more complicated, getting to the bottom of what a client needs is really, really important. So that's been great to see. I was attracted also by Turnkey's reputation in the US. They are, without doubt, the leader in this space. And you look at the track record and the work that they've done, it's second to none. And as I saw shifts in the market with expansion into Europe of US influence from new ownership groups, private equity money, etc., I felt it was a good opportunity for me to be part of that expansion and put my network on top of Turnkey's.
Tremendous. Troy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Come from a long way away, the other part of the world, which is now, joining the whole global practice together with the Asia Pacific market, which is one of the fastest growing markets in the world for sport and entertainment. And I was very turned on and excited by the expansion of ZRG as a whole, but also Turnkey and their capability in these markets. In Asia Pacific, we look to the States for a lot of the professionalization, commercialization, and professionalism of sport. And I guess for that very good reason, the credibility, this was the powerhouse for sport in this part of the world. And to be able to bring those sort of capabilities to my market, to the Asia Pacific region, was kind of exciting. And I guess, a lot of the analytics and data and information, the digital platforms that a firm like ZRG Turnkey has got is quite exciting. And I guess that sort of capability to bring that to our part of the world was one of the big drivers for me to come across here. And we just need to look at some of the sports organizations in Asia Pacific today. They certainly look this direction as opposed to towards Europe traditionally for fast tracking their plans and expansions around the world.
Troy, let's stick with you for a second. So talk just a little bit about your background.
Sure.
And maybe some of the major placements that you've done in the Asia Pacific region.
Yeah. So I came from an athlete background. I was very fortunate to represent Australia in running for a long, long time. And I certainly really wanted to stay in the business of sport. So for the last sort of decade, I was working in the business of sport throughout the world in Switzerland, Thailand, Hong Kong, and of course back home in Australia. And it was only recently I switched from on-field talent, so the athletes and teams, to now working with the off-field talent, the business of sport. And it was a natural transition in the last few years. I have had the great fortune of working for a leading executive search firm before in Australia, building their Asia Pacific sports practice from scratch. And it was an exciting time. The region was going for what they call the green and gold decade, where they've got more world championships and Olympic Games than any other part of the world for the next sort of 10 years. And I guess the importance of executive search was becoming more prevalent. And it was just an exciting time for the region in that regard. Some of the clients I've been fortunate to work with have included the Brisbane 2032 Olympics. So my client, the Prime Minister and the Premier at the time, for the President, the 5 independent directors, the CEO, and a handful of other C-suite executives that they've got there now in the room leading the charge for Brisbane 2032. Off the back of that, we're very fortunate to drive a lot of that but also set a bit of a precedence for the other sporting organisations in the region that, executive search was best practice. it was still quite a new thing and for the region. And we had very great fortune to service a lot of other NSOs and national sporting organisations with Swimming Australia, Athletics Australia, and Motorsport Australia, but also in some of the other regions of Asia Pacific, including Hong Kong, Japan, with C-suite executives, but also with some high performance roles in head coaches as well.
Awesome. George, how about you? Just a little bit on your background and major placements.
Yeah, well, as you can tell, I'm starting to go a bit grey then. So I've been doing this for a bit longer than I thought I had been. I've been lucky enough to doing this for 15, 20 years now. And a bit like Troy was talking about the Brisbane Games, London 2012 was really a bit of a Kickstarter in the UK for kind of the professionalization of sport and also the use of executive search. So since then, I've been very lucky to have worked with top Premier League clubs, European clubs, Formula One teams, sports governing bodies really across the continent. And I've been lucky enough also to work across the range of roles, whether it be CEO, C-suite, director level positions. And I think what we're seeing more and more is kind of the change of job descriptions that are within those job descriptions. So I think historically a CEO will have actually been doing something perhaps slightly different to what a CEO is now doing. And I think we're seeing that also throughout the C-suite with the changing consumption habits from fans that we're seeing. There's a real need now more and more to bring in fresh thinking, new ideas around monetization and engagement. And I think that's a trend that we're gonna see more and more, and probably play into the need to bring great talent in from the sports industry, but also from adjacent sectors too.
Let's stick with you, George, just for a second, because I know you also team up sports and entertainment and media.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just talk a little bit about the media side and what's the marketplace look like in Europe right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there's uncertainty, if I was going to say that, around media rights specifically in Europe. There are a number of tenders that have happened recently, which perhaps haven't gone as planned or as people had hoped within Europe. So I think there is a nervousness. You do get the big players are still sitting with tenders that are in high demand, and there are lots of interest in those. But I think what we're seeing is further down the funnel, some of the smaller rights holders are perhaps struggling now with their media rights and retaining the value that they've historically had, which in turn then means that they need to find ways to monetize in different ways. So it's definitely a period of change and transformation and challenge and opportunity.
Troy, you are in a far-flung market when you think about, all the way from Australia across Asia Pacific. What does the talent marketplace look like there these days?
Yeah, good question. So the Asia Pacific market is probably one of the most, sort of untouched of the markets in that regard in terms of sports executive search. Each of those countries are very complex and very different. So they're not the same sort of model applies. And that's why having a regional approach across all those areas is very, very important. It's an exciting time. It is by far the fastest growing sports market in the world, Asia Pacific. So having a dedicated executive search firm that is actually, focused on that is quite pioneering. It's exciting. There's a lot of, great opportunities there, all culminating over 2032 with over the next decade. There's some really great interest from fans. There's more sponsors. There's more events happening there, not just locally, but bringing international sports properties and events to the region. So they want to fast track their plans. They want to do everything tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of cross pollination and bringing talent from this part of the world or Europe to Asia Pacific to help fulfill some of those needs. And vice versa, some great talent in the region as well. So having the capability globally by having a truly dedicated global sports practice is really, really sort of exciting, but also much needed for the region.
Awesome. Troy de Haas, Managing Director, Head of our practice for Sports Entertainment and Media in Asia Pacific. George Williams, Managing Director, Head of our practice in Europe. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.